Well, it wasn't the type of race that he had last week that he would have wanted, but this week, the road course king returned to his throne, despite a challenge there towards the end by one of his fellow competitors. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Sonoma Raceway, a little bit in the area of San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. Sonoma is known for its picking of the grapes, for its wine tasting, its exotic nature, but it's also known for one of the home of NASCAR's road courses. We started racing in Sonoma back in 1989, and we've been coming here for 37 years, minus 2020 because of COVID year. But ever since then, we have been coming to Sonoma, and we've seen guys have a lot of ups and downs at this track that has a lot of elevation changes. But we've also seen strategy come into play, and we've also seen guys work their best on this technical type of road course. Yesterday, the road course king reclaimed his throne after a bad incident last week that took him out of contention. He returned to the top this week despite a challenge late. Let's talk about all that happened yesterday in Sonoma. Number 1, SVG back on top. Shane Van Gisbergen picked up his second win of the season by winning yesterday's Toyota Save Mart 350 at Sonoma Raceway. But it wasn't easy, as he had to have a big battle towards the end, holding off Chase Briscoe, followed by Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and Christopher Bell to take the victory. SVG coming into this race, we all knew that he was going to be the prohibitive favorite. After what happened to him last week when he was caught up in a wreck on a lap 32 restart at the inaugural race of the street course of Coronado, and he got caught up in an incident including his teammate Connor Zilisch and Austin Hill, who missed the corner there. SVG involved in an incident not of his own making, but it knocked him out of the race and more importantly dropped him below the top 16 in points. So he came in this week with fire and a little bit of a hunger after what happened last week. He said, the whole week ever since that incident, I was not happy. But after winning the pole for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race on Friday, I felt a little bit better. And he was able to carry that forward with a dominating performance Saturday for Junior Motorsports, winning the race by leading 66 of the 79 laps. Yesterday, he started in the 6th position, which I was a little bit surprised. He didn't qualify in pole, and I'm like, he's probably saving his best for race day. And that he was. In the early going of the race, he was able to pick off a few guys, and he was hunting down the race leader, Ty Gibbs, for stage number 1. But then SVG decided to flip the stage and come down pit road with a couple laps left in stage 1 so he could try to have better track position for stage number 2. Thankfully, a lot of other guys were on strategy too by flipping the stage, by electing to forego stage points for track position for the second stage. And because of the amount of cars that pitted, and because of the gap that SVG had over the other guys behind him, he was actually able to cycle back out inside the top 10 at the end of stage 1, finishing in 7th spot, giving him 4 points. And that gave him the lead at the start of stage number 2. And he was doing his best, obviously, to manage his time, manage his tires, and hold track position up at the front of the field and manage the pace. By the time after we got into a couple of laps in the run, he decided, let's use the tires, let's get a gap, because if we can get a good gap before we decide to flip the stage again for stage number 2's end before the final stage, we could be in good position to get some more points. And that he did. He did the same thing he did in stage 1, and he was able to finish 7th in stage number 2, meaning 4 more points, 8 total stage points. Then he cycled back into the lead for the final stage, and he had a challenge up at the front of the field with his teammate Connor Zilisch up there. And we know that those two have had some good battles on the road courses the last year and a half or so with the O'Reilly Auto Parts cars. But now, seeing those guys battle up front for the Cup Series win at this point of the race, I was on my edge of my seat. I'm like, here we go. This is what I've been waiting for. Well, then Zilich's car faded, and SVG was able to stretch a gap. After a caution early on in that final stage with a caution for debris, we had the final restart of the race after that, and SVG once again had control of the lead. Now, after pit stops, everybody pitted with about roughly 30 laps to go in the race. SVG came down pit road. He was able to get the tires, and even though the guys behind him tried to short pit, they were still quite a ways back from him, and he was able to still hold on to the lead. But I noticed towards the end of that race, he was having to work for it, because that car did not look like the handling was there for him towards the end. And even though we know he's a wheelman on these road courses and he's able to hang it out and still be able to manage his race car even if the tires are already chewed up, I could tell he was struggling a little bit towards the end of that race. I mean, to the point where you're catching up on some lap traffic like Daniel Suarez, who was having an off day, and you're not able to pass him. I'm like, that's really, really odd. and he was losing some of his track time, and ultimately that let Chase Briscoe, running behind him, chase him down, and it was a good battle for the win there towards the end with those two. If SVJ made one slip up, which he's not known for doing, but if he did make one slip up, he would have lost that race because the 19 was closing in. But then the 19 made a mistake at turn 1 with 5 laps to go that lost him some time, but he then was able to get more of that time back and catch up to him. If he was a little bit closer to the bumper than 97 in the final turn, turn 11, then he may have put the bumper to him and moved him out of the way. But it wasn't enough, and SVG was able to hold on and get his 8th career road course win. That puts him equal for second on the all-time road course wins list with Tony Stewart. 1 win behind the all-time leader, Jeff Gordon. Now, there are no more road course races for the rest of the year. As you all know, the Roval will not be back this year as we're going back to the oval configuration for the fall race. But we don't have any more road courses that we're going to this year until the 2027 calendar starts next season. So, obviously, it probably sucks for SVG, but on the bright side, he got another win, made it up for last week, and now he's back in the top 16 in points by only 36 points. Now, he needs to be consistent and needs to get back some of the rhythm that he had from his time from winning Watkins Glen, his nice run at Charlotte, and that impressive top 5 in Nashville. Because ever since then, minus yesterday's win, nothing's gone right for the 97 car the last couple weeks. They wrecked out at Michigan. They had a mediocre performance at Pocono, getting caught up in an incident. And as I mentioned last week at Coronado, they got caught up in a wreck that was not of their own making. But now after that, they've been able to accumulate some of those points back. But 36 points above, it's comfortable if you say right now, but we still have a couple more races left to go. 9 races to be exact. It's not over. It's not over yet. You got to be able to have consistent weeks, and if he can regain his mojo that he had from the early month of May towards the end of May, then he probably will make the chase. But if he has the entire month of June luck, then it's going to be a rough go for that 97 car in trying to make the chase. But again, I've seen some improvement from this guy on the ovals the last couple of years. Let's just hope that carries on to these other tracks coming up, especially for a couple tracks that he's never raced at before. So we'll see what happens. But a big congratulations to SVG and the 97 team, Trackhouse Racing. They executed strategy perfectly yesterday. They had a great car. And despite a challenge late from his fellow competitor, he held on and did not give in. Number 2. Oh, so close. Chase Briscoe was so close to upending SVG at his own game yet again. As we all know, Chase Briscoe finished runner-up to SVG in last year's race at Sonoma. He nearly did it again yesterday. The 19 car was relatively quick race car, actually, and we know that Chase Briscoe is a really good road course racer, especially since he jumped onto Joe Gibbs Racing. Well, yesterday, it looked like it was going to be a really nice top 5 day for Chase Briscoe and accumulating a lot of points after having a meh performance at Coronado the week prior. But when we got to the final stage, I could see Chase Briscoe turn up the wick in that 19 car, and he was starting to really get into some great battles on the track. He had nice battles inside the top 5 with Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and Connor Zilisch, to the point where he got by all those guys. And even after they made that pit stop late and they short pitted, they still lost some time to SVG. But as I mentioned, because SVG was not being able to, I guess, have a good handling car at the end of the race, Briscoe was running him down. He was using up the tires, then he would manage them, and then he would use them again to set himself up to catch the 97 car. And he was gaining, but then at the top of the hill with 5 laps to go going to turn 1, Briscoe went a little bit wide and nearly went off course, and that cost him some valuable time to the 97 car. But despite all that, because SVG was still fighting the handling, Briscoe was able to catch him back down to be within half a second as they took the white flag. Now, there were some parts of the track that I could tell that SVG, even under braking as he was struggling, there were parts of it that he was still able to beat Briscoe, but there were other parts of the track where Briscoe was gaining some time on him, and he was gaining, and if he had maybe been within 0.3 of a second heading off of turn 10 down into the U-turn at turn 11 on the last lap, he might have been closer to putting the back bumper to him. I don't think Chase Briscoe was going to dive in there and just ram the 97 out of the way, and that's not how Chase Briscoe drives. I didn't expect him to do that. I was hoping maybe if the 97 slipped up and maybe had a little bit of a wheel hop, that may have given Briscoe an opportunity, just like what happened with Tony Stewart and Denny Hamlin back in 2016, which ended up being Tony's final career Cup Series win. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be for Chase Briscoe, and he has to settle for a runner-up finish, oh so close to taking SVG down. I will say, though, Again, valiant effort by the 19 team, and they've been getting on a roll lately after they've had a rough start to the season. Again, 11th in points, getting some momentum, finishing well week in and week out. But also, I could tell with what we saw from him yesterday, the competition I think is starting to catch up to SVG just a little bit. And if you remember what happened last week at Coronado at the beginning of the race, he qualified on the pole, but then at the beginning of the race, I think he was managing his tires, or he maybe was struggling a little bit because he didn't really have a full grip on that racetrack last week. Nobody did, to be honest with you. But I could tell that some of the competition was getting equal with him as far as the racing product out there. And seeing Briscoe nearly take down SVG yesterday is an encouraging sign that some of these guys can catch him and that this guy isn't invincible all the time. He's human. You saw what happened last week with the wreck. You're human. You don't have to be winning every single road course race. Sometimes things don't work out the way you think they probably should. But at the end of the day, Briscoe, despite coming up short, made a valiant effort, and they're starting to gain back that form. It's only a matter of time before he finds victory lane for the first time this year. Number 3, great performance by the 2 Gibbs cars of Gibbs and Bell. While Chase Briscoe was chasing down SVG for the win yesterday, his 2 other teammates, Ty Gibbs, the pole sitter of the race, had a really nice day finishing in the 3rd spot, and Christopher Bell, with that wrist injury, toughed it out, finishing in the 5th spot. Talking about Ty Gibbs first, it's been a rough couple of weeks, honestly, where we haven't really mentioned Ty Gibbs in the mix as far as the top 5 in winning races, really since the Coca-Cola 600. They had a average race at Nashville. Didn't really hear a whole lot about him at Michigan. I mean, he may have finished well up there. Or he was caught up in one of those wrecks, actually, so he really struggled there. And we didn't really hear a lot of him from Pocono despite a top 10. And he got caught up in that lap 32 incident at Coronado last week, which kind of left him with a wounded race car the rest of the day. But yesterday, Gibbs qualified on the pole for the race and had a great car at the beginning. He was able to lead all 25 laps in stage number 1 and decided to go for those stage points because he's in a battle right now to be in the top 5 by the time the chase starts. He's in a battle with the Hendrick cars of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. And Gibbs wanted to gain points on those 2 so he could also build the cushion to be solidified inside the top 5. And Gibbs was able to do that by winning stage 1 yesterday. He had to sacrifice that track position with other guys flipping the stage at the end of stage 1, but he was able to still pick his way through the pack. And by the time we got into stage 2's closing laps, he was actually able to cycle back into the lead and win the stage once again. Once again, sacrifice that track position for the final stage, but he was able to pick his way through the field. That 54 car was fast, and if there were a couple other guys that maybe decided to be on the same strategy as him, then maybe Ty Gibbs could have had something for Shane Van Gisbergen yesterday. But because he was so deep in the pack, as well as passing guys on differing strategies as far as flipping the stages, and him not really able to gain a whole lot of time, especially being back there, until we got into some long runs where they'd spread out, cars would handle bad, he was able to pick some of them off one by one. Gibbs had a very fast car yesterday. If he maybe was the one challenging SVG for the win yesterday, I think Ty Gibbs would have gotten him. But with how the strategy worked out, it didn't go in his favor, but a great performance nonetheless from the man that sat on the pole. You got a lot of stage points, and you come out of there with a nice top 5 result, and you're still in the top 5 in points right now, currently 4th in the standings. So a good job yesterday by the 54 team. And then we go to his teammate Christopher Bell. If y'all remember last week, Bell did not run the entire distance of the race because he said with the tricky track conditions and because there were some guys having some hard hits with those concrete walls, I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to start the race, and then I'm going to hop out by the time we get to the first caution. So he got out the first caution of the race for the tire on the track that was left by Bubba Wallace, who didn't get it tightened, and that let Brent Cruz, one of the young drivers at Joe Gibbs Racing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, step in for the 20 car and run it the rest of the race. Well, they didn't make it to the end of the race because in stage number 2's early laps, he blew up and ultimately left them with a last place result, and the points went towards Bell because he started the race. So that was a bad weekend for Bell. This weekend, however, went much better for him, and he said with the technicality and not really a whole lot of concern, he was going to tough it out the entire race yesterday, and that he did. And he also had a very good race car. He also was on the same strategy as Ty Gibbs, who was able to stay out there and get those stage points that he needed because he wants to stay above the top 16 in points and be relatively maybe within the top 10 to 12 to feel relatively safe as we get closer and closer to the end of the regular season before the chase starts. Bell was able to accomplish that yesterday with a very good car, good pit stops, and was able to pick guys off when we got into some long runs, and he found himself inside the top 5. I didn't think he was going to get to the top 5 yesterday as far back as he was, but because a couple other guys in front of him were struggling with tire wear and some guys had some cool shirt issues, Bell was able to muscle his way up there and get a 5th place result and is now back in the top 10 in points. And if he can stay there for the rest of this regular season and get a win along the way, Christopher Bell could be somebody to watch for in this chase. If they can get that bad luck out of the way, nothing's going to stop this guy. The only thing people say, well, what about the wrist? Well, if he stayed in that car yesterday and he toughed it out at Pocono, even though it was tough for him and he nearly pulled off the strategy of saving fuel before running out on the last lap, Bell can handle it. He'll be okay. So, great jobs yesterday by Gibbs and Bell on differing strategies. Both secured top 5s. Number 4, first top 10 for Zilisch. Yesterday, Connor Zilisch, the young phenom rookie, picked up his first career NASCAR Cup Series top 10 with a 7th place effort at Sonoma. Finally, this young man gets a break because this season has been utter hell for Connor Zilisch. It's been a tough go for this young man coming up to the Cup Series with so much potential after dominating the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series last year. He's had nothing go right for him this year because of still getting adapted to the Cup cars. The Trackhouse cars have struggled on racetracks, and there have been 3 weeks in a row where he finished dead last. I mean, it's been really, really tough for him. But I knew coming into this race, after he had great speed last week, but was part of that lap 32 wreck that took him out of it, he was hungry and looking for redemption at Sonoma this weekend to get back some momentum and try to get a good finish for the first time this season. And that he was able to do. Despite qualifying in the top 20, it took him a little bit, but by the time he got into some long runs and gained some track position, Zilisch was able to find himself inside the top 10. Then he got to the top 5, and by the time we got into the start of the final stage, Connor Zilisch was on the front row with his teammate SVG battling for the lead. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. We're going to see these two finally duke it out for a Cup Series win. I mean, I know we saw them do it at Watkins Glen, but Zilisch was on a differing strategy, and ultimately he had a tire go down late and he had to pit, and ultimately took him out of a really good result. But yesterday, nothing went bad for Connor Zilisch as far as the race car is concerned. He was able to stay up there, maintain good track position all day long, and came home with a 7th place result. It looked like he was going to finish in the top 5, but I think he maybe used up his tires. And there was one thing that was not working inside the race car for him. His cool shirt. It failed, and when that fails, you are literally sweating bullets in there, having to work the race car on a hot, sunny day where there are no clouds in the sky, and not to mention out in California this time of year, it gets pretty warm. So he had to manhandle it all the way home to the checkered flag, but he was able to get his first top 10, and that's a big confidence booster for this young man because he hadn't had a lot of good things go right for him this season. He's 34th in points, which that's not what a lot of us expected from him this year. At the very least, he could have been in the top 25 in points, but it just goes to show you how rough of a year it's been for him as well as Trackhouse Racing. But as I have mentioned in previous videos, this young man is going to get better with these cars and figure it out, and he'll have better results going forward. It sucks, though, that there are no more road courses this year because I know for a fact that he could run up front and possibly contend. But yesterday was a good shot in the arm for him and the number 88 team, and hopefully they'll have some good runs going forward with some good results to back up with that. But after a tough season that it's been so far for Connor Zilisch, he finally was able to break through the bad luck with his first career top 10. And number 5, change at the top. In yesterday's race, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new points leader for 2026. For the first time this year, Tyler Reddick is not the championship leader anymore. That belongs to his team owner, Denny Hamlin. Hamlin took the championship lead away from Tyler Reddick in yesterday's race. Now, how did all this happen, you ask? Well, let's recap. Denny Hamlin qualified inside the top 10 for Sunday's race. Tyler Reddick qualified 11th. But in the early going, Tyler Reddick wasn't really making a whole lot of progress up through the field, and he decided to forego the stage points, even though he probably was a little too far back from getting any to begin with, but he decided to forego stage points in stage number 1. After that, he rated to his team, I've got no power steering. And we all know that when it comes to road courses in particular, if you don't have any power steering, you have to manhandle that race car around that circuit, especially with the elevation changes. It was going to be a really rough day for Tyler Reddick and that 45 team if they didn't get the issue fixed. So they had to stay on pit road for a couple of laps, sadly, and that a really potentially good day for him and had to fix the issue so he could stay in the car and finish the race. Ultimately, he fell 5 laps down. Tyler Reddick finished dead last yesterday, 4 laps down after those power steering issues. So, really tough day for the 45 team. Now, as for Denny Hamlin, as I mentioned, qualified inside the top 10, and early on, he had a really good race car, actually. And it's the first time in a while that I could say Denny Hamlin showed speed on a road course, because we all know that road course racing the last couple of years has not been really kind to him, especially with the next-gen car. But yesterday, for the first time in a while, I saw speed from that 11 car. I don't think it was race-winning speed, but it was certainly capable of finishing inside the top 5. And he had a really good car in the early going. He didn't get any stage points, but he was definitely in the mix to get a good result yesterday. That was until the final restart of the race, when the field was heading down turns 4 to turn 7 with the elevation change. Hamlin running at about the 5th, 6th spot, all of a sudden from behind, gets tapped and goes around spinning. Who tapped him? 77, Carson Hocevar. And he was even asked on the radio, who hit me, and they said the 77. Denny didn't say a single word. That tells you all you need to know about how Denny Hamlin feels about Carson Hocevar. And through that spin, the 11 car unfortunately suffered some splitter damage, and we all know, even on road courses, if you don't have that splitter, it's going to kill the aero and cause a lot of handling woes. So Hamlin yesterday fell all the way back to 35th after that spin. Then he picked off a few more guys. Then he made his final stop falling back, and then picked off a few more. But ultimately, Denny Hamlin finished in the 26th spot. Ouch. Again, he had a very good car yesterday. The incident with the 77 thing, and look, those things happen, and I'm sure Hocevar did not mean to hit him. But we all know how Denny Hamlin feels about Carson Hocevar. He will probably admit that he's a talented guy, but he unfortunately shows these signs week in and week out where he continuously does stuff to people that rubs them the wrong way and how they feel about him. And to make matters worse, obviously, you cost Denny Hamlin a possibly good result yesterday. That's the unfortunate part. The one consolation that Hamlin can take from yesterday was that he's now the point leader by 1 point over Reddick, because Reddick actually did get the fastest lap at the end of the race. We thought it was a 2-point advantage. It's actually 1 point advantage. So it could flip back to Reddick's favor next weekend. But Denny Hamlin thought he had a very good shot at a top 5, top 10 yesterday. But all that got ruined when he got tapped by the 77 car, leaving him with a bad taste in his mouth. But there was another thing that Denny Hamlin will take away from yesterday, and that is, this was also the first race of the in-season challenge as part of TNT Sports kicking off its second season and NASCAR Cup Series broadcasting. TNT has the in-season challenge where 32 drivers are put together in a bracket, just like the NCAA March Madness Championship, and the highest finisher of those drivers moves on to the next round, the next competitor. If y'all remember last year, Denny Hamlin got beat out by Ty Dillon in Atlanta because he got caught up in a wreck. Ty Dillon did not, and he finished in the top 10, which led to him saying, "I beat your favorite driver," to Denny's fans after that result. And Dillon, of course, went on to the finale at Indianapolis, but he lost out to Ty Gibbs. Well, guess who was matched up against Denny Hamlin this year? That's right, Ty Dillon. And after Hamlin's spin, with Ty Dillon where he was in the track, it looked like Ty was going to do it again. But in the closing laps of the race, the 10 car had power steering problems and ultimately led him to having to nurse that car all the way home, and ultimately he got passed by Denny Hamlin. So Hamlin got his revenge this year for the in-season challenge, you could say that. But aside from that, all he gets at the end of the day is the championship lead by 1 point and frustration with the 77 car after getting spun out. How would I describe yesterday's race at Sonoma? Well, I mean, ever since we put the new surface on the race course, there's been some good passing out there, especially with the car, with horsepower added this time and tire wear. And you saw the tire wear become a factor yesterday, particularly at the end of the race, by seeing SVG having to manhandle that car, knowing that the tires were shot, he wasn't happy with the handling, and that Briscoe was able to make a challenge at the very end. But once again, it was a race, again, impacted by 2 stage cautions and caution for debris. It wasn't really a whole lot to really describe much, but it wasn't a bad Sonoma race. It was a good race. Just wasn't the most exciting one. But I can say, the battle for the win at the end had me at the edge of my seat, and I did not know who was going to win until we saw that checkered flag. Now, it is time for 4th of July weekend, where we celebrate our independence this upcoming weekend, America's 250th birthday. Proud to be an American? USA, baby. And this weekend, to celebrate 4th of July, NASCAR is returning to a track that we haven't been at in 7 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Chicagoland is back! I have been waiting so long for us to come back to this track because the last time we were there, it was 7 years ago in 2019, where we saw a thrilling battle for the win with the 550 package that we had at the time, where Alex Bowman picked off his first career win in the NASCAR Cup Series, besting Kyle Larson. And that was a very fun race. And I think Chicagoland, we've all seen how this next-gen car has made these intermediate tracks very entertaining to watch over the last couple of years. Chicagoland could be in for a big homecoming return with great racing. And could we have a similar battle for the win like we saw Bowman and Larson at 7 years ago, or the one with the late Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson the year prior in 2018 with the famous quote by Dale Jr. with slide job? Maybe. You just got to tune in to find out. But this mile and a half track, I'm so happy for them, and I'm so happy for the people in Joliet, Illinois, that they get to see their track finally return. Now, is this a permanent return? That remains to be seen, especially when we don't have next year's schedule yet. But I am very much looking forward to it, and hopefully the product that we put out there Sunday night on 4th of July weekend, we put on a show for the fans. They get a treat of fireworks from the fireworks celebrating our independence, and some fireworks on the racetrack with some good racing. We'll have to wait and see what happens. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and you all have a wonderful, blessed, and safe 4th of July this upcoming weekend on Saturday. So subscribe, like, and congratulations again to Shane Dan Gisbergen and the 97 team, victorious at Sonoma. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!